Imagine you're the captain of an oil tanker. You're sitting in the Persian Gulf, $200 million worth of crude oil on board. In front of you is a 21-mile wide bottleneck of ocean. On one side, Iran. On the other, Oman. And somewhere in that water, between the patrol boats and the drone strikes and the naval mines, there might be a path through. But you don't know if your country is on the list. Because right now, in 2026, Iran is running the world's most expensive toll booth. And they decide who lives and who burns. Let's start with the basics. Because if you don't understand what this place is, the rest of this video won't hit the way it should. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow channel of water between Iran to the north and Oman and the UAE to the south. At its narrowest point, it's just 21 nautical miles wide. That's barely wider than the English Channel. But here's what makes it utterly irreplaceable. Every single day, before this crisis, about 138 ships passed through it. Those ships were carrying roughly 20 million barrels of oil, about 1/5 of the entire world's daily supply. Plus 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas. Plus fertilizers that keep global crops alive. Plus aluminium, helium, and dozens of other commodities. And here's the terrifying part, there is no alternative. No bypass. No other route. The Persian Gulf is essentially a bathtub, and the Strait of Hormuz is the only drain. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Qatar, Kuwait. All their oil has to go through this one narrow gap to reach the world. That's $600 billion worth of energy trade every single year, flowing through a corridor 21 miles wide. China gets a third of its oil through here. Japan and South Korea are almost entirely dependent on it. Even Europe gets 12 to 14% of its LNG from Qatar via Hormuz. If this strait closes, the global economy doesn't just slow down. It chokes. Tier 1, the friends, countries with full or near full access. China, Iran's most important trading partner and oil buyer. Stayed neutral, called for de-escalation, deep strategic ties to Tehran. Chinese-linked ships transiting following diplomatic coordination. China gets roughly a third of its oil through Hormuz, so the arrangement is mutually beneficial. Russia, formally authorized. Moscow has backed Iran diplomatically and strategically. Russian commercial vessels were cleared early in the crisis. India's neutral stance paid off. Indian-flagged LPG and crude tankers explicitly cleared following direct diplomatic engagement. Multiple confirmed safe transits. Iraq, perhaps the most politically charged exemption. Iran exempted Iraq from all restrictions. IRGC statement. You are a nation that bears the scars of American occupation, and your struggle against the U.S. is worthy of praise and admiration. Pakistan. Listed among countries granted safe passage. At least one Pakistani-flagged tanker tracked exiting the Gulf via Hormuz in mid-March. Malaysia. Passage granted following direct talks between Kuala Lumpur and Tehran. Iran reportedly exempted Malaysian vessels from transit fees as a gesture of diplomatic goodwill. Turkey. An LPG tanker called the Bogazasai broadcast that it was Muslim-owned and Turkish-operated, and successfully passed through. Flag and identity signaling are becoming a real strategy. Tier 2, the gray zone, countries in limbo. Countries like Japan, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and the UK issued a joint statement in mid-March demanding safe passage, but didn't openly endorse Iran's position. Their ships have been trickling through in recent days. A French container ship and Japanese-owned tanker crossed in early April, but it's fragile, uncertain, and expensive. Tier 3, the blocked, countries with no access. The United States, Israel, and any country Iran deems to be actively supporting the strikes. On March 27, the IRGC announced the strait is closed to any vessel going to or from U.S., Israeli, or allied ports. The IRGC also stated the strait will never return to its former state for the U.S. and Israel, even after the war ends. The $2 million tollbooth. Now here's where this story moves from military conflict into something potentially permanent. Something that could reshape the global maritime order for decades. Iran's parliament passed legislation to charge transit fees on vessels passing through the strait. Up to $2 million per ship. Think about that for a second. Before the war, 138 ships per day passed through Hormuz. At $2 million each, that's $276 million per day. Over a year? roughly $100 billion.
$2 million.
That's equivalent to Iran's entire annual oil export earnings, without selling a single barrel. $2 million per ship times 138 ships per day equals $276 million per day equals $100 billion per year. In fact, Lloyd's List intelligence reporting confirms at least one vessel has already paid a $2 million fee to pass. This isn't theoretical. The toll booth is already operating. Iran is also negotiating with Oman to establish joint management of the Strait, a protocol, to supervise and coordinate tanker traffic. Iran's deputy foreign minister framed it as providing better services to ships, but analysts call it what it is: Iran establishing permanent sovereign control over an international waterway. Gregory Brew, a senior analyst at the Eurasia Group, put it bluntly: if Iran manages to permanently control the Strait, it would be a colossal strategic and financial win, making Iran more powerful than it was before the US attacked it.